Okay. Good morning, everyone. All right, let me see here. All right. So, I hope everyone's had a great week. Um, I am just going to go ahead and get us open and started. Um, so, here are the updates we have coming up. There's not very many as of this moment, but currently there are a few updates uh, that we're going to hit on. And then after that, we'll open this up for open discussion. We've not had open discussion now for a little while, and we felt it was time to just open everything up, let everybody comment, you know, voice their concerns and whatnot moving forward. So for August 6th, there are two updates. For Site Improve, the Site Improve scan has completed. If you log into Site Improve, you will see it looks a little more normal. Uh, the reports and scores are reprocessing, so information may not be fully completely processed yet. But as the scan was ongoing through the July 30th code release, some results of the scan may not include the latest changes to code, but they will be picked up in the next scan and improve our scores. The AEM team is actively pursuing multiple strategies to reduce the overall scan times. Here are the upcoming fixes for the August 20th release. For the authoring issues, improper use of pre-formatted text element, which, let me see if I can find that again. Let's see. Yep. Okay, that one, and the HTML element is depreciated or obsolete. I don't know the specifics for these two authoring issues, but it looks like they're going to be addressed in the upcoming release. The developmental issues, we are looking at text not being included in an ARIA landmark. This will implement the required ARIA landmark for the last updated component. And then improper use of pre-formatted text element, which will enable the formatted text option in the rich text editor. As always, we recommend you keep up to date with the Site Improve ADA issues dashboard, which is linked on the accessibility site on TeamTN, as well as here in the presentation. Our digital accessibility coordinator position has closed, and we are currently reviewing all submissions. This position, once again, will take the lead on the ADA initiative for the state of Tennessee. So we are excited to get someone onboarded for this. We are looking for an amazing candidate that's going to be able to really help drive this initiative forward. And with those two updates, I will go ahead and open discussion so that we can discuss any concerns, questions, or challenges that you're currently experiencing or foresee for your agency. So if you want to come off mute, you can, or you can raise your hand and we can go one by one. That way we get everybody we can in the time allotted. Also, if you wanted to chat, we can go ahead and chat. Use the chat feature in the chat inbox. We'll try to read through those as best we can. I do see Kara has her hand up, so I will relinquish to her.
All right, I'm just going to follow your rules. Really, what we wanted to do, we've had so many the past month's worth of ADA office hours have really been kind of focused on certain directions, but we wanted to make sure we weren't leaving anything out with all of the questions that are out there, making sure that we're not that as we're getting specific and driving in on certain things that we're not forgetting about the other things that people have on their minds. So we really felt like it was needed to do kind of a general one. So what are some questions you all have? What are some concerns you all have? What should we be looking to focus on, or any questions for us? And we're here to help. Dottie, I see Dottie's got her hand raised.
Hey, good morning, Kara and John. Actually, I came prepared. Y'all sent the thing. You had some challenges, so I came with a list. Um, let me remove my hand if it'll go down. Anyway, let's see. My very first one is I know that Yvette Thomas was spearheading like a statewide training plan. Do y'all have a status update on that? I know they put that on hold. Do y'all have any updates on that whatsoever?
Okay, as far as I understand, we are currently working to develop some training that will be going out to all agencies that you can use and distribute as needed. It's going to be very basic in nature to address most issues that we will see. But outside of that, I don't know. Kara, do you have anything else?
Yeah, one of the things, and obviously Yvette brought the LinkedIn learning trainings, I guess about a month and a half ago. And some folks had watched it and were able to interact with it. Some folks hadn't watched it yet. So we're trying to really get a handle on, and that's one of the topics that we'll be addressing with the steering committee when they meet next week, is where should we prioritize training? Where are some of the things as we're working to develop enterprise-wide training? Because I'm not sure that we know what we see and we know what we hear, but I'm not sure we're hearing everything. We did get some good responses from the survey, but how do we best go about training? Somebody asked, are we putting it in Edison? What are we doing as far as those kinds of things? So really kind of determining a path forward that makes the most sense for enterprise-wide training, and what are those items that really people are looking for specific training on. If you have any suggestions, drop them in chat because we definitely want to know what those are as well.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Paige?
Hi, yes. This isn't a question, more so than FYI to everybody. We at FNA have reached out to CPO Legal and have requested that they add into their ADA clause for contracts that any content being provided by vendors be ADA compliant. Any content that's going to be publicly posted or public facing on any website page. So that is currently going through CPO policy subcommittee. And so just an FYI, hopefully in the next 6 months or so, that ADA clause will now include content being produced by vendors as well.
And that's a good point. We have actually recently had some challenges with one of our vendors who is a very public facing vendor for us in terms of supporting directly operating portions of a program for people with disabilities, not providing us when they're providing us with materials. They are not to post. They're not accessible, even though they do have some language in their contract about printed media, et cetera, and WCAG 2.1. Strongly encourage all of you all, when you get these third-party documents that people are asking to post, that you do take a look at it. Just run a quick accessibility check on it if you can. I did send all of those back and request that they make the changes that they that are in the contract. So as you all, if you have contracts that already have some type of language in there, if they have filled out a VPAT, and you see something and you're in the course of posting or in the course of just your communications work, that you're seeing it, strongly encourage you to just do a quick accessibility check, because a lot of our third-party vendors do like lots of very heavy graphic, heavy one-pagers, which is great. They're beautiful, but they might not be the best with screen readers. So just making sure that that stuff is kind of that you just kind of take a look at what might be out there when it's coming and being requested to be posted. I see Kevin asked, what is the status of the new ADA compliant logos and letterheads? Is one of our DGS printing services folks on here and might be able to provide an update?
This is Jenny. I am almost complete with our template, and we'll be starting on all of the submissions that everyone sent to us. I guess I need to put the link back in there again. Anyone who has not reached out to us with that form stack, we do need you to submit to us, regardless whether you need any changes or not, because we need to get them all done and online into our queue as soon as we can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that update. Since HTML forms are considered better for compliance than fillable PDF forms, is there a push to increase the state's allowance for forms in FormStack? That is definitely a conversation we need to be having with the FormStack team. We all got that pleasant email. It was like they knew we were talking about needing an HTML solution that they decided to send out the email last week at the same time we're at this meeting saying that FormStack's nearly full and everyone needs to clean out their old stuff. So yes, that is a conversation that definitely needs to be happening, and we will have that. CPO currently shares statewide contract instructions as a PDF, but is transitioning to share them as a Word document. If they lock the Word document to prevent editing, will that impact its accessibility for screen readers or users with disabilities? John.
So that is a really good question, and I don't have an exact answer on that specific question just yet. In theory, it shouldn't affect the readability of the document. It just restricts the editing, but I have not tested this, so I can't say whether or not it will impact accessibility. So let me take note of this, and I will test and see what I come up with, and I will also do some external research to see what comes up. But thank you.
Carla, if you have an example document, you might be able to send John that he could run a test on. So we're running on a test on something that's something like that. Feel free to send it his way. But yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, I will. I have another question since we're on here. We just met with our CPO team. Is the Edison team part of the accessibility process? Because Edison produces a PDF for them, and they're having issues with the way the PDF is set up. So I wasn't aware if, they're part of anything that's going on with accessibility or working on that.
They are, and because that is a portal that people that are not internal to the state of Tennessee use for a variety of reasons. And I know that Clancy has been on here before, and we're eventually we're working on learning some things for him as well. But yes, I believe that Edison is partaking and has been on this meeting before.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Somebody said, I apologize, I missed the meeting last week with the PDF discussion, but if we have several reports that are 60 plus pages that are typically PDFs, how are we to share them now?
Going forward, you can continue to use PDFs. The biggest issue with PDFs comes from in the form of forms when you're doing fillable forms, because remediating PDF fillable forms can be done. It is possible, but the overhead or the time and resource commitment to do so is quite large. When it comes to PDFs for print reasons like reports and whatnot, if they are going to be shared publicly, then they have to be remediated completely. The larger reports, if they're automatically generated, depending on how you're generating these reports, they should be able to be made accessible using the tools that you have. But our recommendation is, use PDFs for print versions only. Any other format, such as if you want to have it online, you can easily create a web page in AEM And even if it's 60 plus pages, the creation process as opposed to the document creation process will remain basically the same. You can add your headers, your images, and all that, and improve your accessibility right out of the gate if you build it with that intent. So you would have a URL that would go to, 2025 report, whatever. And then at that point, all the information you create under that web document would be accessible. It's just that you can continue using PDFs and Word docs. It's just that the remediation process going forward is going to be more time consuming and resource intensive. Okay, I do
And-
see, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing to add is if you watch the presentation that John did about remediating documents, he does go towards the end how to kind of not only check but remediate a document in Adobe Acrobat, and also kind of remediating the source document too. That could be helpful when it comes to creating accessible PDFs as well. John, anything else about that?
No, it's just that when our approach is looking at the long run game, what's coming down the line, how is our approach going to be better enhanced if we look at doing things just a little bit differently? So let's say, for example, reports typically don't change. So PDFs are perfectly fine for reports that you're publishing. But say you have a document or a form that does change on occasion, whether it's quarterly, biannually, whatever that may be. If you look at approaching it from an accessible standpoint and take a PDF form, for example, and you transition that over to like a FormStack form, for example, you then can go in and update that form simply, that when compared to having to add all of your form films to a PDF, because you have to entirely rework the whole document. There is not a simple fix. So let's say you wanted to add one question to a 3-page form in a PDF form. That form would have to be saved from its original format into PDF, then open it up in Adobe Acrobat. You add your form fields back. You have to make sure you're including your tooltip text. That way it works for screen readers. You got to make sure that it's tagged properly, that it's flowing or the reading order is correct. So you're not jumping, all over the form when trying to use a screen reader to fill that out. There's so many nuances when it comes to the PDF version. The simpler approach is to have like a FormStack version of the form for online filling. And then any updates, you just log in, you make your update to your form, make sure you include your screen tips or tool tips, whatever they're called. And going forward, the updates are much simpler. So the overhead, when you're looking at the overhead as to what it's going to cost, maintain that form as you update it over time is going to drop dramatically. So that's why our approach seems a little controversial. It seems a little foreign because we're having to rethink how we look at these documents, because ultimately we want to save time, money, effort, and energy in everything we're doing. This approach helps remediate that using the best possible methods that we have available to us. So I hope that helps. Again, if you guys encounter anything that is problematic or you're not quite sure, reach out. We're more than happy to take a look and see what we can do to help out.
Dottie asked, our stakeholders have asked for standards for alt text for the logos and director and senior staff headshots. Does any agency currently have standards they would share for TDOT? We don't have standards for those specific items. We have just general alt text standards, which explain don't use photo of, because the screen reader is already going to know it's photo. But I oftentimes, when I'm creating accessible documents now, we have a lot that have the state seal on them. I do just say the Tennessee state seal with the name of the Department of Disability and Aging accompanying it, or something along those lines. Alt text is not meant to be 500 words on the circle and everything that's involved in the and in the state seal, and also with headshots. When I'm usually doing alt text for headshots, which I do a lot of when I've been on X and doing things for my commissioner's feed and stuff like that, we do a lot of photo descriptions. And if Kathleen's on here, Kathleen, are you on here and can talk a little bit about how you do those
Yeah,
or
and
what,
you kind
what
of
you focus on?
sure, and you kind of covered it with the not starting with image of or picture of because it will repeat it twice. But if it's a simple headshot, I think we would just say headshot of Commissioner Turner with DDA. I'm not describing what he looks like. I'm just saying who it is and what their title is because that's the purpose of that image anyway. But yeah, we try to keep it 100 to 150 characters. And the most important part isn't trying to get every detail. It's trying to get across the point of the image and what people who cannot see or have a visual impairment would be missing if they couldn't see it. So the most more of the meaning of it rather than describing every detail in color.
Kathleen, that's perfect. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kathleen's a rock star on all of this because she does this day in and day out when it comes to alt text for all of the things. So really happy to have her on the team. When we met with our CPO team, we discovered that they were working with a very old version of Adobe Acrobat Pro. The end user thought that STS would send out auto updates and had no idea his version was so old. Is there an expectation that each end user needs to ask for the most recent version of Adobe Acrobat Pro? We have so many people who create content. We're trying to figure out who needs tools. I'm not sure how the request process for that is done because I know a ticket is provided, but my team, my procurement team and STS team is pretty good. They have like little alerts on certain Adobe tools that are non-negotiable for us, and they tell us, and then I say, yes, I need that. So I'm not sure how, what other agencies are doing for that. But I mean, John can speak to why working on an old version of Adobe Acrobat Pro might not be providing the most cutting edge technology for the web content accessibility guidelines, etc. You're on mute.
You want to make sure that you are on the most current version you can be. So an annual update cycle is great. For us, we stay as current as we can because, as tools improve, we want to make sure we're being able to have our team equipped to provide the best features and functionality with our documents. So the ADA has just further added the importance of having up-to-date tooling so that you can provide these documents.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. And like I said, we're very lucky that, and it came from trial and error when all of a sudden some of our Adobe tools disappeared one day and nobody told us that the license had expired. That now, and this was like 10 years ago, but now they set a little alarm and I get a very, very courteous, hey, it's time to update this stuff. Do you want to update it? Yes, I do. So that's kind of that's how we've been able to do it. We've received feedback from stakeholders that their AEM access does not allow them to change the headings because it is set up through CSS. They also state they don't have access to styling and font size. As the IT project manager, I do not have access to AEM, therefore I cannot confirm these statements. Is this correct? And if it's correct, what is the best practice for making content compliant? John, not sure if you know this. Okay, he's got it.
So in AEM, the templates that we use for pages and whatnot, they're already using styling that has been approved. So the styling is locked in. You cannot change page styling at all. It is based on the CSS styling on the back end. And that is for a reason, so that everybody's information looks uniformly the same, operates as best it can. And AEM doesn't grant that ability for anyone to change the styling individually. So there's no need to worry about the font sizing. There's no need to worry about the heading styling, anything like that, because that has all been set based on best practices using our current templates in AEM. So that has kind of made it a lot easier. So if you're creating an H1 for a heading, or an H2, H3, and so forth, the styling is going to be appropriate. We have been talking with our AEM template team, and looking at ways that we can further enhance the styling a bit, so that when individuals want to print out a web page, for example, the print styling will structure the document as a regular print document. And that's all something that's handled behind the scene. That's things that we won't be able to change ourselves, but it provides a better experience for all the users going forward. But outside of that, if there is a need for a new style, we may look at, I don't know, potentially, putting a request in to say, hey, here's a need for a style that we're needing. And, if it meets requirements, we might be able to get that put into an update. So if you have any specific requests, send them to us. We'll share them with the AEM team and see what we can get accomplished.
Thanks, John. Between you and Paige, boy, I'm going to have all my answers for my 1 o'clock meeting.
There you go.
Well, we aim to please. After looking over the Site Improve report, I see how it's useful as an overview of how the enterprise is doing, but is there a way to determine if my division or department is where the reported issue occurs? Is it meant to be a diagnostic tool this way?
Yes.
Yes.
So you should have, or your department should have, someone who has access to Site Improve. If not, you can put a request in to have that account created. And when you log into Site Improve, you'll be able to see specifically for your department or division or agency what that looks like and how that applies. You'll be able to see an overview for accessibility. You can go deeper. Once you go into that overview, you can see any issues that need to be remediated, and it walks you through all of this. You can go page by page of everything that's having issues in Site Improve. Now, Site Improve is a great start as a tool to see, hey, this is what's going on. This is where you need to focus your attentions. But it's not the end-all solution. There are other requirements that we have to meet that do meet a manual process, and that would be making sure that the structure of every page is laid out correctly. That makes sense. Logical reading order. You want to apply that whole process as you would in a document to a web page, which is a web document. So when you take that look and you're reading, you don't have columns on one side with your navigation, and then you've got navigation that's moved over to another section. It doesn't flow. It doesn't make sense. So we want to maintain a logical reading order. We want to make sure that we're looking. You don't have to worry too much about color contrast, because again, that falls under the CSS styling. There are some things with certain browsers that will allow you to override what people are seeing. So if you have a report of someone that's got a visual impairment or something, and they're using a customized browser that the text size is different than default, colors are different than default, you may get a screen grab and be like, that's not what that's supposed to look like. We just need to make sure that we are understanding, that the information that's being presented is correct. And Site Improve helps us present that the best way forward, but it's not the end all again. So you may have instances where, like I said, you'll get a screen grab of someone saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Is this correct? And you instantly recognize that's not what our web page looks like. So you need to make sure you're asking questions. What browser are you using? What changes have you made, so that because each individual's browser and technology that they use can override what we provide and offer. And if they have inadvertently changed a setting that changes that styling, then that could be a hiccup that is a simple fix. Just you figure that out. But ultimately back to Site Improve, yes, you should have access to that. It is a great resource and it helps you pinpoint what you need to focus on.
Awesome. Also, I'm seeing that Adobe issues auto updates. For Acrobat Pro, I will let you know that if you're using the Creative Cloud, you got to go pay for that every year. Matthew Perriott remembers when his computer shut off or his Adobe shut off. I'm sure John does too, from the great Adobe blackout of DIDD 2014 or 15. Okay, has the ADA initiative team determined whether FormStack meets the criteria for a legally binding form? Now, I'm going to just speak for us. We did bring this to our legal, and they said yes, if there was a checkbox that said like something along the lines of I certify that this is I certify that this is all true. They said we could do it and that it would be legally binding. But that was for the example that we gave to our lawyer. And he said, yeah, I don't, for that. So that is what we have been given as an opinion from our legal on that. At some point, I thought I heard the ADA initiative team was looking at some vendor options that departments could look into procuring to remediate documents for us long term. Is that still the case? We have many PDFs that are heavily designed. Yes, they did, and they brought on here two vendors, Cavendis and Brooksource, for people to inquire and ask, and that have some remediation capabilities. Last week, some agencies who got quotes from them did share some of their quotes. For remediation, there's a price tag. So I'm not sure whether any of those who have gone that route are willing to share again, but yes, those vendors, those presentations are in the ADA archives and those I think that contact information, those folks is in those presentations as well. So that might be an avenue you take a look on. Let's see. I know there's been talk about the AEM size and character limit. John, I know you probably know that. So, but you might be able to speak to some solutions around that.
Yes. When it comes to, providing content in AEM, if you have a lot of information you want to provide, say a report, let's take that 60-page report, for example, you would need to break that up into multiple pages in AEM. So it follows the same process as you would creating any other web page in AEM. So if you have a member or someone who creates pages or content for your website, they would intrinsically know how to do this, or they should. If they have any questions, by all means, have them reach out if there are any concerns or questions about how to approach this. But basically, you want to provide content that is manageable. Larger reports, they're a little bit harder to consume, but it can easily be translated from PDF into a web page. It is a manual process. There is no automatic conversion, unfortunately, but it is something that we can do. And you just have to find where you may want to break it page by page. So you would have 60 sub pages, which sounds like a lot, but it technically isn't. If you're copying and pasting your text, then you're manually adding your images, making sure that all links have the alt text, all images have the alt text, all that information is being provided. It's really no different than what you would be doing when you're creating the PDF report. Again, unless it's automatically generated. But you want to make the information manageable by smaller chunks. So page 1, if you wanted page 1 through 5 to be one page, depending on the character limit, that AEM has set. I don't know the specifics. There are limits, but I don't know what the specifics are to those.
Great. And then some folks have said, talked about the AEM, the headers and stuff like that the tools are greatly expanded by viewing full screen, and not everyone might not know about opening the text component and others to full screen to select the H1, H2, H3 address sizing and for text and headers. A lot may update within the main component without updating the full screen.
Yes. Yeah, so there's a little icon. It's just like a little square that pushes out, and you just click that when you open up the rich text editor, and it will expand to full screen mode, and it gives you more tools that you can use at your disposal.
Okay. Is there any statewide law or policy about how long dated information such as public meeting and press releases must be made available online? Or is that just up to each agency? I am not aware of, I mean, obviously there are there are RDAs. So if we have to keep things for a certain amount of time in some form, but oftentimes, especially with us having to remove our website, we were given the green light to, as long as we had a copy of it somewhere, to be able to remove content. We don't have any, since we became DDA, we don't have any of our old DIDD press releases on our website. So for instance, but if somebody asks me for a press release going all the way back to 2013, probably, I can provide them a copy of it. So, I think that every agency might have some type of different standard, because there are going to be standards for certain things that are specific. But for us, generally the majority of our stuff can, as long as we have it housed elsewhere, can be removed from the website. Yeah, and you will need to consider any RDAs. So that is definitely what we do and for the most part, it doesn't have to live, like I said, it doesn't have to live on our website. It just has to live somewhere for a certain period of time.
I see where Sonia commented, the best part of Site Improve is that it will take you to a level that allows you to see what is wrong, why it is wrong, how to correct it, and the level of technical expertise needed to do so. Yeah. Debbie asked, do we need to add specific text to forms to designate them as the official form? If so, would you share that text that your legal staff has approved? Now, I will say, this is just my take on this. If you're providing a form to the public, it's an official form. So automatically, one of our forms that we did the survey a while back, you'll notice the header, it had like the Great Seal of the state of Tennessee, along with our Department of Disability and Aging logo at the top. That, if it's coming from the department or agency, it should automatically be designated as official. Anything else, I don't know if there's a required component for legal reasons. Kara might be able to help on this a little more.
So back in the day, and I'm going to date myself here, I guess, for being at it with the state for a while, and John remembers this. All forms were governed by the Department of General Services, and any forms had to go to them to get a form number. Some of you all probably remember this process back in the day. And then, I don't know, we were in this building, so it can't have been that long ago. We've been in a couple of different buildings, that there was a law that changed that, where forms management was kind of bounce back to each individual agency. So we, our legal and John, who is our forms manager, which we did not see this coming, so it kind of all worked out really well for us. He created a forms management and tracking process for our agency, and that probably was like 3-ish years ago. So with that, we developed internal operating guidelines, if I remember correctly, on forms, how they go through the system and how they become DDA official forms. Because like I said, that process used to be governed by General Services, but it was returned to the states, not states, sorry. It was returned to the agencies. I mean, we all operate like our own states. And and that was, and that's how that is going now. And then Debbie says, I remember those days of all forms being approved by them. We have a lot of people creating form stack forms and may have not gotten them approved by our department officially. That is where I would definitely encourage some type of internal operating guideline, etc., because that is the process for, that is what we have been doing for three years. And there is even a form number kind of thing. And John tracks when revisions are made to the forms. So that definitely helps. That definitely helps as well. So that is definitely something that has been helpful for us in the past 3 years. We did not envision we were going to be doing what we're doing now, but glad we have that process in place now so that we, that's one thing we can check off our box. I don't see the option to create in AEM to create an H1 header. Can you explain where that is again?
Yes, and I can show you real quick. So I'm going to share my screen. So when you're editing content in AEM, when you click the edit, you see this here, this button here that's got the full screen option. You click on that, and for example, this right here is a header. Click on the paragraph styles. There's header 2. Then you have your other options below. So that's what we were talking about when mentioned earlier, you know, creating headers. So let me create test. Then you can assign it to another one, and it will automatically format based on the current styles in AEM. So you don't have to worry about setting any other style other than assigning it a specific header format. Now that seeing as this one is an H2, your next one that is nested within information wise should be an H3. You shouldn't jump to an H4, even though they're quite similar in how they look for page structure and accessibility as far as that's concerned. You want to make sure it's laid out using best practices. So your headings fall under the hierarchy properly. You have H1s, H2s, H3s, and they all fall nested within each other at that rate. Now, if you're jumping to another topic that would also, so instead of, let me do it this way. Let me change that. So instead of jumping from an H2 to an H3, say you have another topic that is a main level topic, you could have another H2 and then go H3, H4, H5 in that content. So when you're keeping that context in the back of your head, that will create a document that is extremely accessible, that will eliminate most issues when building an AEM. I hope that helps. Yes, you always want to work in full screen. That way you get to see the most tools that you have available for you. The H1, yes, Debbie, you are correct. The H1 is automatically created. That's the page title. So that one's kind of hard-coded into all of our templates. H1's not an option to create outside of the page title itself. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. I do see where I just got notified that the internet just went out at the central office, so it looks like Kara and Aaliyah may have fallen off, which is which is okay. There may be others. We are, like we said earlier, we are looking at creating training, and we want to make sure we focus our efforts on where it's needed most. So any comments on what training would be great, as far as what would have the most impact for your department? We're going to be releasing standard training for Word documents, PDF documents, things of that nature. But if there's specifics that you feel may need to be addressed, let us know. If the need is really great and we want to make sure we address that need. But if it's really great and it's something we've not considered, then that's what we're here for. We want to do the best we can, getting everybody on the same page, because agreed statewide training would be immensely helpful. Now, web pages, basic document principles apply when creating a web page in AEM. If you're the one that's doing the edits and the updates, you just want to make sure it's structured properly. You want to make sure you're adding your alt text to your hyperlinks and your images so that screen readers can better navigate. And that's ultimately, and not just screen readers, but other assistive technology. There's some other new emerging technologies out there that can really enhance the experience for individuals with different disabilities. So, ultimately that's what this is going to work for the better for. But the basics, once we get the basics down, then we can move into more nuanced areas. But again, we are looking at Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDFs, and then web pages in general. So outside of that, if you have any other needs that you may think of, let us know, and we'll dive into it.
Yeah, and I apologize. Thank you, John, for taking that. We had a brief internet outage at the UBS building, and Kathleen and I and several others got thrown out of this meeting for a little while. So thank you. And thank you for everyone talking about the training. This is something that, as I mentioned, we have steering committee meeting next week. And we're going to be discussing that with them. Also, the survey results, we're going to be sharing it with them next week. We will probably bring it to this meeting after that. So just so you all can kind of see what people were feeling, who answered, all of those things, and where sometimes understanding that you're not the only one that's struggling with something helps move the needle forward when there's a collective indicating that. And we definitely saw a lot of those trends when it came to it. So looking forward to sharing some of that information with you all as well. But really, remediation, talking about the possible remediation tools is going to be on that agenda. And then also talking about where should priorities be for training. And then one thing I wanted to mention really quickly is, we've been working with April and her team, and they've been so great. And then the AEM team has been really, really great. But one thing that I think I may have mentioned it last week, but one thing April showed us was, and it's something that's easy, that's available to a lot of the web folks, John has it, is really looking at your numbers when it comes to how many people are hitting what page when it comes to prioritizing what and how you remediate. She pulled up some of the numbers for just basic tn.gov. And, when we're thinking about where are more people that could have accessibility issues going to be looking, now it's not impossible, but there were, as you can imagine, millions of views of the Real ID page. And there was like one view of somebody who was very interested in a specific animal on the Tennessee Wildlife Resources page. Now they looked at it 192 times, but it was, it's, when you're looking at your own content, we know that at DDA, we have pages that are hit all the time. And that those are the things that we're looking at really first to make sure that they're accessible, as opposed to the one page that's used by one person, well, first of all, we have to make a decision of whether the one page that's looked at by the one person needs to really be on there. But then if it does, then, you know, that kind of comes lower down in our list of what's needed to remediate, because we want to make sure that we're hitting the things that are most likely to have an interaction with a person with a disability. So program pages, those kinds of things first, as opposed to something that might not be seen as much by folks about an old grant we once had or something. So, and then really looking at how to, you know, we're going to be, the AEM team is working on a comprehensive archiving that somewhat automates, that has some automation built into it, that will help really provide a kind of clear path going forward that could look similar on every page going forward, to make sure that archives kind of can look the same on any page.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions, and I think that it's been a good meeting, that we just had one, that we could just have some open conversation, talk about what's vexing you guys, and what's going on. We are, like I mentioned, we did that digital accessibility position closed today. We did get some strong candidates, and we'll be looking to get somebody in as that can provide some real assistance on this in this area as soon as possible. All right, that's all I've got. John, anything else?
No, I just sent a comment in regard to Charmaine's question. We haven't heard of anything. If you want to submit that to the ADA inbox, we can get that escalated to our AEM team to see what's going on, but I had no knowledge of it.
Okay, we will find out about that. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, guys.